Welcome to Secrets from a Billionaire's Matchmaker with matchmaker Gina Hendrix.
Hey there, I'm Gina Hendrix, matchmaker extraordinaire at your service, here to talk you into just seeing the world through my matchmaking eyes. How about that, right? I've been doing this a very long time, and my goal with this is to educate you on seeing things as you've never seen them before, because a matchmaking perspective is like no other. Relationship experts have their own lane, and dating experts have their own lane, and matchmaking is where you've got to be Switzerland and you've got to be neutral and you see things from both sides. So today I want to talk about, we can call it when to hold him, when to fold him, and when to kick him to the curb. And I already know you have a great question for me. So let's do this. How do you know when you're in love or love or you love a person that I had? But I think that the term like love can be overrated and misused, because a lot of women, that's what keeps them in bad relationships. But I love him. He treats me like shit and he's a this and that, but I love him. Love really doesn't matter if you're not happy. So I think let's take the focus off of love and focus on, does this person make you happy? And then I think if somebody makes your life easier, better, happier, you feel fulfilled, you feel secure, I think love should come out of that.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My question is, what are like your first date for a woman kind of checklist or like non-negotiables, right? Like a woman must show up on a first date having done or doing these things.
That's such a great question. Boy, that's a great question. Write that down somewhere. I should do a TikTok about that. I think first of all, safety is key. So you want to get yourself to the location. You don't want to let him pick you up. You also want to tell your friends and family where you're going. You want to look your best. Even if you're exhausted by dating, things always happen when we look our worst, right? Like you run into that ex, or you get that opportunity and you're like, oh, why didn't I fix myself up today? So, even if you're exhausted by dating, even if you just think, oh God, I don't know if I'm going to like this guy, fix yourself up. Bring your A game in every way. Be positive, be upbeat. And then I would say also look at it as an opportunity, not as much, this is going to sound weird, not as much to like find love, right? But to experience interacting with someone new, learning about someone new, learning about yourself, sharing conversations, and expanding your world in a sense, because I think if we put it all on that person, like, oh, I want this person to be the love of my life, I think we build it up so much that it's next to impossible for anybody to live up to that. So I wouldn't set such a huge expectation. I like to stay optimistically cautious, as I like to say. But I think, look at every interaction when you go on dates, not as a make or break. And so, you get disappointed, but so that, you went out, you had a good time, hopefully you shared a few laughs. You learned how to look at somebody else's perspective. I think this is part of growth, and we all need to continue to grow. Okay. Now you had a question that concerned me a little bit. Okay. Because for me, my primary concern with all my ladies, I don't worry so much about men. So I am concerned about something you brought up. So let's talk about it. Okay. It says, don't agree to get in his car after the date to talk more. I've had some men wanting to do that. Yeah, I wouldn't do that either. I think you just say, oh, you know what? Because if it went well and you liked him, and you don't want to like, and you're afraid to turn him, I don't want to hurt his feelings. But just say, no, you know what? I had a really nice time, but I have a rule for myself, and you can do it in a flirty way. I never get in a man's car the first time I meet him. And if he doesn't understand that, then he is definitely not the guy for you. Here's one on how to get a man to commit and coordinate a date.
I had a gentleman who was interested in coming down to fly down from the state to meet me in person. He hasn't committed to a date. How do I move him to do that?
So are you talking to him on a regular, is he reaching out and communicating with you on a regular basis?
He has been. His grandkids were in town, so he's been focusing on that, and I've had major work issues, so we haven't talked in the last few days.
Right.
But he still hasn't committed to a date. He keeps saying, "Oh, I really want to," but how do I coax
I mean,
him?
honestly, well, I don't think it's coaxing him. I think it's really just asserting your boundaries and drawing your line in the sand, which means
Okay.
I would wait until he
Mhm.
reached out again. And then when he
Okay.
does, you got to lower the boom and say, hey, I'm excited to finally meet you. Let me know, reach back out to me again when you have a plan for us to meet. And basically you're
Okay.
saying, F off if you don't have a plan to come meet me. Do you know what I'm saying?
That's kind of what I was thinking, but I
Yes.
wasn't sure. So,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. And you've done FaceTime and Zooms with him?
Yes.
Okay, good. So you've at least done that, thank God. But
Yes.
yeah, now it's time to just sort of because otherwise, this could drag out forever. So
Right.
and mentally, I wouldn't mind you disconnecting a little bit. So when you when you send him that message and you draw your line in the sand, I also want you to sort of disconnect mentally a little bit. That way you can start focusing on others,
Mm-hmm.
until he
Mm-hmm.
steps up. Okay, so here is a question that you've really got to be able to answer for yourself. I think that is a very philosophical question. I don't know that there's one answer. Okay, ladies, so now we're going to get into something where a lot of people just aren't willing to be honest with you. It's not easy to tell somebody the hard truth, but in this scenario, it had to happen.
I went out with this guy a few weeks ago. Remember the guy who we
Yes,
had
I know
a
exactly who he was.
conversation,
Yes.
and then
yes.
he forgot our first phone call, and then we
Yeah,
had
he's all over the place.
right. He's all over the place, and good looking guy. He just got on Bumble, so I'm sure he's getting a million hits. And he even told me, he goes, "Oh, I'm not desperate. Don't worry." And I'm like, okay. But anyway, that was like the perfect example. But he was the fourth time that I've had a date with somebody where we had a great phone call, had great text communications, had a great date that lasted for all of them have lasted over 3.5 hours. So it's like, obviously we clicked. With this guy in particular, we had a ton in common. We were there for over 5 hours. But when it was time to leave, he even kept me at the valet stand waiting for our cars. We talked for another hour and a half. So
did he pay for your valet and wait for you to get your car?
Did. Yes,
right?
He did, which was really, a total gentleman.
Right.
And I've told you this before that this is like the fourth time now where everything seems great. The guy would give me a nice little kiss goodnight, say he would love to see me again. I say that I would love to. Something's happening between the time that and also all of them text to make sure I got home okay. One of them had walked me home. The other three, texted me to make sure I got home okay from my drive. And then just nothing after that. So this last guy, I texted him in the morning and I said a little thank you, for a wonderful evening. And he sent me this long text like, "Oh, you're one of the best dates I've ever had. You're so easy to talk to. You're intelligent. Wow, all these wonderful things." And then he's like, "Well, unfortunately, I didn't feel a spark. I was trying to feel something when I kissed you goodnight, but I just didn't." And that was it. So I texted him back and I said, "Yeah, sometimes sparks, when they jump too fast, they also fizzle out. But I feel like when there's a foundation, then you have something to grow on, and it's exciting to build it up." And he's like, "Yeah, well, I'm just trying to find something that sparks right away because I don't want to have to keep on checking in with my feelings to see if I'm starting to." And so I just I deleted it, obviously. But I'm just wondering what anybody's thoughts are on that, because you can tell when there's no magic, but also when you really click on so many other levels. Are these men do they really want to feel fireworks? He's 65. We're in our mid 50s. Are we supposed to feel like giddy teenagers?
I'm going to be really honest with you about men. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All they mean is they're not attracted to you enough.
Mm.
They're not talking about fireworks. They're not talking about sparks. Men don't care. Men don't, in my world. And again, I'm talking about the thousands of men, not only that I've worked with as clients, because I haven't worked with thousands, but men tell me everything, any man everywhere I go. But, it's attraction. That's what they mean. He's just not attracted to you enough.
Mm-hmm.
And for men, they are either in or out. It is very black or white. They're never going to ever become more attracted to you. Whereas women, we're different in that way. We can be more open-minded. We can become more attracted to somebody, not men. they are either attracted to you or they're not. So that's why he was like, but they, they're not going to say that, right? Because that's harder to say. Like, hey, I wasn't attracted to you enough. So, but that is what it is. Now, why have you gone out with these guys and they weren't attracted to you enough? I don't know why, because I'm not there, but that is what it is. Let's switch gears to something I feel very, very strongly about. And this is the perfect example why, when you ask friends or honestly, even a therapist or even other coaches, why they can't give you a real perspective. So she told him this scenario and it was horrible. She went on a date and she got to the restaurant and the guy came in and she said he didn't look like his pictures. She said he looked much older than his pictures. Okay. And then she said that he just kind of sat there for a couple minutes and didn't say much and said, oh, I got to go to the bathroom. And then basically he left. He never came back to the table. Now that's horrible, hideous, horrible. Okay. So now what we can all agree on, that collectively, whether we were there or know anything about the scenario, we can all agree that guy's an asshole, right? I think anybody that can't just sit through a lunch or a dinner, even if somebody shows up and they don't look like themselves, they need to learn how to be an adult and just roll with it, right? So there's that. However, she was trying to get Rory's advice on why he did it and what went wrong. And listen, Zawiro tried to give his best advice, but he doesn't know what I know. So he was trying to tell her, oh, the guy probably felt like he wasn't at your level, whatever. Well, I mean, still needs to do her work on her profile. She never did that. So she's using old photos herself. She's not using accurate photos. And so the perspective here that Miro was missing in order to give her the accurate advice is actually seeing and knowing Sue, seeing the men. I've seen the men she chooses, right? So in order for anybody, and I want you guys to keep this in mind, when you're asking for advice from friends or even a therapist, I think of all the times, when I went to therapists, and I'm not saying I should replace a therapist. Do not think that. But you also have to take their advice with a grain of salt, because their advice is based on very limited information, and it's the limited information that's from your own perspective, which might not even be accurate. I mean, I can think of times where I was telling my therapist things but she doesn't know the full story of what he did. So I'm just saying, keep that in mind when you try to get advice from other people. Just know that they're trying to help, but either friends a lot of times aren't willing to be honest with you. They're afraid to hurt your feelings, or truthfully, they just have limited information that you've given them. Even when some of you ladies try to tell me, oh, Gina, he said this. Oh, Gina, he said this. I'm like, you can't tell me secondhand. I want to see the conversation. Let me see what you said that led up to it. And all these little details, really, somebody, in order to give you accurate advice, they have to have a 360 perspective. They can't just have a one-sided perspective. Now I'm going to take a question that was written to me here in the chat. Please explain what we should expect from men on Hinge versus Bumble. So on Hinge, they need to be making an actual comment on your photo or something on your profile, no low-level likes, no roses, none of that jazz, because again, that is just the lowest level effort they could possibly do. And I've said in many videos that I feel like you ladies deserve a man who can at least string at minimum 3 words together for you. You know what I mean? Because I know these guys, and I know that it's just very low level. They're going around to every lady, just low level liking. So yes, we want them to be able to come up with something to actually say to you. And wow, you're beautiful, again, is just really kind of low level, but I mean, it's certainly better, I guess, than a thumbs up. But we want real effort is what we're looking for. So this might be a controversial opinion, but I'm going to go forward with it. And let's talk about it. Yesterday, for example, and again, this doesn't have anything to do kind of really with what media talks about in terms of the age. But I mean, the age thing is like one of those huge pink elephants in the room that never goes away, that we can debate till the end of time. I also have another controversial opinion on something that I may not share here today because it's so controversial. Well, especially probably more so with, I don't know, yeah, you guys wouldn't like it. I probably won't even get into it. But anyway, so yesterday, and I know you're dying to know now, but
Yes.
so yes, I know. Okay. I'll just share it.
Please.
And again, you'll disagree with me, but it's you'll disagree with me probably for sure. And again, I don't push this agenda on anybody. It's just something I've noticed behind the scenes from matchmaking is the whole never been married thing, right? So, everybody wants to judge people. I'll just give you a perfect example. There's this woman that's been in my database for quite a while, and she's fantastic. She looks so exceptionally young for her age. She's so gorgeous. She's amazing in every single way. Okay. And I mean, does she have other issues I don't know about? Who knows? Because there's issues that come up when people are dating that I don't know about at my level, right? Like nuances, quirks, whatever. But I've known her for years and I love her. I think she's just wonderful. But the thing is, she's never been married. And I know for a fact, a lot of my guys that I presented her to them over the years, and they're like, never been married. Okay. But yet, here's the thing. I had a neighbor when I was in Venice. She was married, divorced. Her husband was in prison turned out he was a pedophile. Okay. But yet men would still say yes to her because she was able to say she's married to somebody, even if it's somebody who's been in prison, versus a woman who's never been married gets overlooked. So I have gone round and round with this woman, the woman who's single. And I've said, and you're going to hate, you guys are going to hate this. You know where I'm going with this, where she needs to say that she was married very briefly in her 20s. It was no big deal. It didn't last. Even if she was married for a week, do you know that in somebody's mind, that would totally change how they saw her, even if she had been married for a week, and so I don't know. So it's a controversial opinion because here's the thing. Will that ever impact that man? Never. Whether she was married or not will never impact him, but it does impact how people see her. And it sucks for her because I watch the years go by. And I know for a fact, because I know men, I know how people think, that what's happening is they're going out with her and they're already in their minds prejudging her. Like, I'm going to figure out what's wrong with her. And so they're more alert. They're on high alert and looking for things that if they were going out with a woman who was divorced, they may never even think I'm on high alert and looking for things. Do you see what I mean? So she's already showing up being scrutinized in a way that somebody who's been married hasn't. And so, yeah, she isn't afraid of a commitment, but that could be true. It couldn't be true because here's the thing. She could have, again, been married to somebody in her 20s, and she has lived with people. She's lived with people. But there's people who just decide, yeah, I don't want to, this isn't right for me or whatever. So they could commit, but don't want to commit to the wrong. Listen, this is so dicey. And when it comes to human behavior and the fine line between how honest should we be and not, it's such a fine line. I've never been married. I spent my life raising my son and helping raise my nephews and nieces. Should I change mine? I think, I don't know. I think having a child actually probably puts you in the club. If we're looking at in the club or out of the club, let's phrase it like that. I think having a child, even though you've never been married, I think you're still in the club, meaning that you're in the thumbs up club. You're in the social, you get the approval of people club,
Gina, thank you for saying that. I've always suspected that I was being
Judged.
my status, judged and looked at through that light. And but the only light I've ever heard people talk about is like, oh, not about me, but about people who've been divorced, is like, oh, they have baggage, right? And so I don't want to say I was like blissfully living as if I didn't, really think that, but I think there was some part of me that knew that somebody is looking the way. And frankly, I judge men that way too. I think, oh, yeah,
right.
Until George Clooney got married, right? I would call them a George Clooney.
Right, except that George Clooney was married when he was young to Talia Shire.
He did.
Way back. People
I
forget
didn't
about that. Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, so but yes, but I know what you're saying. The point is still valid. Yes. Or David Spade. I don't believe it. But I think that I just if being a matchmaker's taught me anything, it's that the majority of people go through the world just trying to really label people too quickly, trying to judge people too quickly. And I feel like and this goes back to the age, people fudging their age or things like that. And I think that I've just learned there's not one reason why anybody does anything. People have layers, people have, and I think the more empathetic and open-minded we can be to going on a fact-finding mission for ourselves, to let people show us who they are, not who we think they are based on them, but show us, okay, maybe you are committal, or maybe you do have committal issues, or maybe you don't. But I think I always say, and I don't do this on purpose, okay, but I just do. I give people enough room to basically hang themselves if they're going to, right? But what I mean by that is I give people the room to show me who they are, and either they end up shooting themselves in the foot or they don't. But I just don't prejudge people. I just don't. I mean, I might have some ideas, but I still go, I'll still let them show me who they are. And I think more of us need to do that, because I think the majority of people really, really try to judge. Now, here's something that I want to just continue to remind you guys about, because it's so, so important. And I say this all the time. Exceptional people are few and far between. The people who are willing to do the work and put in the effort to have a better life, to have better things, to just be better in every way, those people are few and far between. And that's in the real world, and it's on the dating apps. So I want you guys to adjust your expectations to know that you're not going to be seeing all these phenomenal men everywhere. You're really not. But what we're trying to do is level you up in a way so that where the low level men go, oh, I can't touch that with a 10-foot pole. Awesome. And then when you do spot that 1 in a million guy, and you're going to be you're the 1 in a million woman, it's going to be easier to connect with one another. But don't expect the most phenomenal men everywhere. Know that, yes, we have to sift through all the average low end people, but we keep our eye on the prize. Don't get so sucked into looking at all the things you don't want. Let's just put our blinders on and focus on only saying, hey, even if it ends up being one guy in a week that's like right on the bullseye and you guys have connected, that is a win. That is more than what's happening in your day-to-day real world, for sure. Now, here's a step you should never, never, never skip when it comes to pre-qualifying men.
I've asked for a couple phone calls now, and I learned during those phone calls that these men were still married. They were separated, but not married, not fully divorced, and they hadn't even moved out of their houses yet. And
wow.
they just told on themselves. I wasn't, interrogating them. I was like, oh, so how long have you been divorced? How old are your kids? And they said, well, actually, and so sometimes you can learn and if you're looking for like something more serious, sometimes you can learn sometimes that saved me, 2 hours of my life. So just that might be a good something that might encourage you to not be worried about the phone calls. Cause I hate talking on the phone too. So, but I learned a lot. So just maybe that'll be an encouragement going forward.
I love that. Thanks for adding that. And the other thing is, you can say, how long have you been, I always say legally divorced, because a lot of times you say divorced, and in these guys' minds, because it's been going on for years and they've signed a lot of the paperwork, but not the final, they'll say, oh, I've been divorced 4 years. But if you say legally divorced, then they understand exactly what you're talking about. You know what I mean? So that's another way to do it too. And I love that you brought that up. Thank you.
Okay, my question was, what should you do if you're not good at talking on the phone?
I think that you use this time as practice, right? Because you're here to do things differently. And I'll say, well, here's my advice on, I think some important questions that you need to probably ask him on the phone. You know what I mean? A phone call doesn't have to be a heavy, long phone call. It could just be hearing each other's voice, just finding out, double checking, like, so how long have you been dating, or how long have you been divorced, or to confirm what's their intention with dating? What are they really looking for? Okay, let's talk about all these other dating apps that are out there.
My question to you is, I know that we frequently discuss Bumble and Hinge.
Yep.
However, I have discovered a couple of other sites that are very particular to some of my beliefs, let's say.
Okay.
How do you feel about us utilizing some of those sites, which
I mean,
so the functionality is different.
I'm never gonna, I do believe in going down all roads. I think though, if you're somebody who already feels overwhelmed, I might not recommend it, but I do believe in going down every roads to test. What I think though, at the end of the day, it's sort of like going to kind of a big event versus a small event. I mean, small events are great if it is the right type of people, but a lot of times, especially if it's a newer app and stuff, you're not going to have as many options, which means good and bad. Do you know what I mean? Like I've talked about this before, I think on my live, is that, there's, when I see new apps, I usually try them. There's one called Better in Person, which seems interesting. It's all kind of more video based, which again, I like that. But because it's brand new, it's just all gross, really gross men. And that's the mistake I think a lot of new apps and stuff make is they don't have the people on it yet to keep women, especially women, to keep women's interest. So I say I wouldn't stop you from trying it and then let's see. But I don't know. I would love to know. I've not yet in all this stuff I'm doing, I've not heard of any woman coming back to me with a better solution that actually gets her across the finish line other than either Bumble or Hinge, simply because it's got the most options. Okay, so here's another question, and let's talk about this. I would like to know how to tell when a recently divorced man is ready for a committed relationship. Had 3 dates with a man, fully divorced last October. He also relocated at that time, so lots of changes in his life, but tells me he definitely wants a relationship. I've said I will date him, but don't want to rush anything. He actually has many qualities I like. I think, what I would be asking these guys, first of all, I did a video recently about people who are in transition in their life. If they're recently out of a divorce or if they're relocating, they may want a relationship, but we don't know what time frame they're talking about, right? So I personally, as a matchmaker, I know how to ask people very specific questions. And so if you ask a question and somebody comes back with a vague response, ask the question again. Say, "Oh, I'm not sure I understand. Can you be more specific?" And I think as women, we get so afraid to like really try to drill down to get the answers we need. And what happens is we end up walking away, not really getting the answers to our question. So in his case, I would have been asking him, and you still can, like, I'm just curious, how much have you dated? Like how long were they separated? If they were separated a number of years, and so he's been in relationships and he's dated, these are the kind of things you want to find out. Because if he hasn't really dated, that could potentially be an issue. He may want to date. And then if he wants to get into a relationship, I would say, well, I hear you. Are you looking to get into a relationship sooner or more like at some point in the future? Just ask. And these are perfectly relevant questions to be asking because you're meeting on a dating site. And most people on dating sites, most of them, are looking for actual relationships, especially women. And so these questions, nobody should be upset about the questions. Nobody should be afraid to ask the questions. People should not be confused about why somebody, you know what I mean? These are relevant questions. So I would just always ask to get the actual answers you guys need. So you had a question, this is kind of interesting scenario, about a coffee date. And typically how I feel about coffee dates.
I met someone in real life. He's a neighbor. We had an amazing coffee date. The conversation flowed easily. He's probably 20 years older than me, so he's a little bit out of my age. I mean, definitely not my age bracket, but I kind of was like, well, why not just see what happens? But then he came over to hang out with me and my kids, and then he presumptively kissed me, and I was like, what? And it was kind of caught me off guard. So do you help with in real life situations like that?
Of course. I help navigate all those situations.
Okay, good.
So
Because that's probably confused.
So wait, so he asked you for coffee.
Yeah.
You went to coffee.
Yep.
And then at what was it, at the coffee place he tried to kiss you?
No, it was the next day, because I said, look, I'm going to do a lemonade stand because that's how I met him. I did a lemonade stand on my front lawn. He came past, we hung out with my kids, He asked me for a coffee date. Few days later, we went out, and
Wait,
then
so have you done 2 coffee dates with him?
no, just one.
Okay, okay. So came by the lemonade stand, then you went to the coffee date. Okay.
Yeah, and then he says, "Let me know when you do another lemonade stand." I'm like, "Well, it's the weekend. It's probably going to happen tomorrow." And it happened the next day. So he came by, and then, we both like said how we had such a good time on the coffee date, and we really liked the conversation, which we did. And then he leaned in and kissed me, and I was sort of like, I'm more fluid. I go with these things in the moment,
Right.
but now I'm like, "Oh, I don't know if that was a little bit, I don't know." But then it might be just because of his age. So I don't know.
How old are you?
46.
So he's
Got to be 65 because he literally
And
looks.
what does he do for a living?
He's a writer, like documentarian, like in that business. He's like,
He needs to be. Well, I know a lot of ladies here are like cringing because they say because I don't know if you know, but I know coffee dates. I'm like, no coffee dates, But the neighbor thing makes it a little different, right? The neighbor thing kind of, because it's not like you're meeting on a dating app, or I'm cool with a coffee date maybe in the neighbor situation, but
Yeah.
but he needs to step up his game, like a dinner. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? This
right.
needs to happen before he's coming in for a kiss, for God's sakes. And the man should be lucky to have, he's going for a woman 20 years younger. So, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't do another coffee date with him.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up for today. Ladies, I want you to be safe out there when you're dating. Okay, so just always have me in your head and say to yourself, what would Gina do? All right, I'm kidding and I'm not kidding at the same time, because trust me, because I care about you all deeply. If you ever want to join a live power hour and you're there on the Zoom with us virtually, and it's rapid fire Q&A, so if you show up, got to bring a question. That's the rule. Email us and we'll put you on the list, and we'll invite you to join us one of these days. Team Gina at ginahendrix.com. And don't ever forget, I'm always going to be sharing bits here and there, spilling tea on the wacky world of matchmaking. Because in love and dating, there's never a dull moment. All right, see you soon.
Want to keep up with more of Gina's advice? Follow her on TikTok and Instagram at Matchmaker Gina Hendrix, or visit her matchmaking website, ginahendrix.com.